Hello, once again. This is Deadpool Negative. I wanted to talk about my promised review and thoughts on the second Doctor Who 60th anniversary special, Wild Blue Yonder. Sorry this took so long. There was work issues on the day it aired, and the things happened. But and I had a lot of time to think about the episode, and I'm going to address real quick what happened at the end of last week's episode. Now, I've kind of resolved, and I don't have resolved that there's just going to be woke elements and on the nose woke elements in Doctor Who because there just are. Um, get woke, go broke doesn't matter to me. Doesn't to me. I don't think. I think part of being adult is accepting that sometimes creators are just going to do whatever the hell they want, no matter who it alienates. But I did find the bit at the end of the episode where the resolution of Donna's issue of the Dr. Donna having the power in her head was like, well, a male presenting doctor would never understand this. They just got to let go. And I know Russell Davies was just throwing shade at people like Gary Nerdrotic or As Heels vs. Babyface or Bowlestrek who can't let go. But it also just felt like, okay, all men can't let go. And I just find that exhausting and reductive and just tiring, you know? And you can say, and I know if Russell D. Davies would happen to be watching this, he'd say, well, it's not about you. And I understand that, but I still felt, I understand that I understand that I'm thinking, but I still felt exhausted by it, okay? Just exhausted. A friend of mine said, well, we make those jokes all the time. Yeah, I'm tired of hearing them too. They're not funny. They don't fix anything. They just come off as, well, the what's become the ultimate crime in society today, smug. And it just was just, and the other part, it didn't really work in the context of the story either, because the doctor was not acting like he couldn't let anything go or that he was unhappy or obsessed with anything throughout the episode. He was just being the doctor. And some people like, oh, he looked exhausted. Although some people are like, oh, he looked exhausted. How bad did David Tennant look? He was smiling. Get over it. I can just imagine I saw Val DiRazio just like rolling her eyes, and I'm like, oh, because you're not smug. Like I guess we're all in but in any case, like I just found it exhausting. And I had no problem with like the cute little like discussion about pronouns of the meat. It was nice. It was cute. And but like, and I mean I have mixed feelings about like making about tying being non-binary or trans to superpowers because or trans to superpowers, but I'm not really sure I'm qualified to speak on that. So, but now that that's out of the way, I want to talk about Wild Blue Yonder, which starts with a really an amusing but kind of odd gag because they basically run an Isaac Newton, and Isaac Newton is played by a non-white actor, which is fine with me. But Isaac Newton, as I recall, was not was I think he owned slaves. Like I don't think he. I think so. That just kind of struck me as odd. Um, but other than that, it was a pretty decent. It was a pretty fun episode. Well, I wouldn't say that's woke or was bothered by it. It was just like, yeah, wasn't Isaac Newton? Didn't he own slaves? Not a big deal. But it was all done to just set up a cute joke later in the episode. And that's the thing. Like there's no real like social commentary or agenda in this episode. This is just a very classic Russell T Davies weird horror and space story, something like The Waters of Mars or Satan's Pit. Just a little, okay, the Doctor and Donna get onto a spaceship. In fact, that was a funny part of the episode. I don't want to give full spoilers, but I really thought when I saw the spaceship and I saw that it was moving and transforming, I thought, okay, this is all part of some plot by the toy maker. This is all going to pay off, and has nothing to do with the toy maker. Maybe a little bit. We won't know until next episode. But I was actually, it's kind of like we're so used to like everything being connected and everything being serialized that I really thought Davies, but no, he's just telling a decent little horror story. The Doctor and Donna get stuck on this spaceship that's supposed supposedly at the very end of the universe, where at the end of the universe there's nothing. And there's a funny gag about oh the Doctor saying eventually humanity will figure out the math to understand the universe has an end. It's not infinite, which I thought was a pretty snappy bit of dialogue. And it turns out eventually we discovered that the Doctor and Donna are not exactly alone on this ship. And what follows is basically a lot of back and forth between David and Catherine Tate, who are having a lot of fun, and I'm glad they enjoyed it. And I mean, because I enjoyed it as much as they did. Eventually, what's going on? Eventually, something happens. We discovered there's a really brilliant bit early on in the episode where basically the Doctor and Donna are fiddling with the ship to make it work again, and they know it's going to take a long time to fix. So they sit there fixing it, and the camera cuts to them in one room discussing everything, and it cuts them in another room discussing the same event, same thing, and it cuts over and over again. Sort of just like, and you think, oh, it's the passage of time. Okay, it's taking them on. They're just discussing various things, but it actually turns out we're watching two different conversations happening at the same time, because one in both of those rooms, one person isn't who they're saying they are. I mean, it's kind of funny because it also feels the effects work was not that terrific, but like Doctor Who was probably the one show that can get away with shitty special effects to me, except for maybe the original Star Trek: The Next Generation. So I actually don't mind. I mean, the ship has awesome design. Like the design people like don't get called out enough for how much a good job they do on some Doctor Who. And Davies, like it looks amazing. All these gears, like there's a little robot, that doesn't do much, but it's really neatly designed. There is eventually you find out who the original ship's captain, and yeah, look at that. That looks pretty cool. Yeah, and but but that's what I kind of needed after this reunion special with like with the on the news like stuff. Like I needed just a simple here's a problem, we've got to solve it. We're out in the middle of nowhere, we've got to solve it. It'll work. It's got to work. So what do we do? And it proved to me that like, even though Davies is very intent on reinventing and he has an agenda which he's allowed to have, that's not illegal. He's allowed to have an agenda, but the agenda doesn't have to always take priority. In this episode, it doesn't. Yes, they discuss the timeless child. Yes, they confirm it happened. Yes, they confirm that half the universe was destroyed in the flux, but it's just there to set up character moments. It's not. I mean, I'm not a fan of the timeless child, but would you want to make Gary Nerdrotic happy and wipe that away? Would you want him to quote unquote win? 'Cause even though guys like that never win, I understand why they're keeping it. I don't like it, but I understand it. And like it's because and I don't like the timeless child because this was poorly written and didn't really add anything to the mythology. You know, because by the time like because it makes Gallifrey my problem with the timeless child is basically it makes Gallifrey the villain of the series, which in many ways it already was. But Gallifrey is also, as far as we know, destroyed again. There are no living beings on Gallifrey, so the Doctor has no one to be mad at, no one to fight, no one to question about his or her whereabouts. So it does nothing really. I don't know how Davies is going to address that going forward. I don't think he wants to address it going forward. I don't think he can address it going forward. Like, where does the Doctor come from if he's not a Gallifreyan? And the answer is it's a question you can't answer. It's kind of like what happened after the events of Watchmen. Like, do you really want that question answered? Because I don't think Alan Moore himself could answer it. There are some problems you can't solve. So don't create them. But Chibnall created it. Andrew Chibnall created this problem. But I think I'm just gonna for me I'm just gonna just let it slide. for the time being. And like I said, it builds to a climax. The effects are fun. It builds. It's just a fun, solid adventure. It's like it's free of it was free of stuff that didn't bother me. That didn't bother me. I mean, certainly saw videos, and but I in the and they also have what sadly was due to his health was the only appearance Bernard Cribbins was able to make in these specials. He was supposed to have some other lines, but and I mean the man's been gone for over a year, but it was still difficult to see him, and David Tennant's genuine pleasure in seeing the doctor seeing Wilf and eh, it's weird because it's kind of like it was I remember it kind of reminded me the late Miguel Ferrer was passed away right before Twin Peaks the third season, I believe, right before around the time the third season of Twin Peaks aired. And Ferrer had been in ill health for some time. I believe he passed away due to cancer. Ferrer had been in ill health, and it showed on his other show. Like he was on at the time he passed. He was on NCIS Los Angeles, and they wrote his illness into the show. And there is a scene where, and he did not look good in those last couple episodes. Like he didn't move around much, and they wrote it into the show. He said, I'm sick. I'm gonna say goodbye. I'm gonna spend my life. And I'm gonna go. I don't have much time left. I'm gonna say goodbye, and that's what happened. Like he died. And then Twin Peaks aired, and Twin Peaks he shot his scenes on Twin Peaks season 3 a long time, like a good time before the cancer that eventually took his life got a hold of him, and it was kind of heartbreaking to see him looking good, and of course he was Albert, and Albert was but he was essentially gone at that point, and it feels like that. Like when I see Bernard Cribbins, and he does he looks like he can barely get those words out. But the life you see in his eyes is really it's really heartening. So, and like they said, this is all we're getting of him, and that sucks. But it was nice to see him. And I'm looking forward to seeing. I think the giggle is just going to make a lot of people mad or confused. I am hoping it's going to be good. Like I said in my last review, like I'm kind of already tired of Donna the Doctor. I just want to see Ncuti Gatwa. I think I think the fact that even after Sex Education, he could write his own ticket. He sought out the part is quite frankly encouraging to me, because Sex Education was a big deal, and like again could write his own ticket, and he wanted to play the Doctor. And the story goes like they had settled on someone, and he came in and read and knocked everything out. And I'm thinking, yeah, yeah. But it's like I'm already ready to see Ncuti Gatwa was the Doctor, and I hope the giggle pays off. Like I saw another YouTuber complaining that the story doesn't feel like a 60th anniversary special, and there's something you said about just telling a fun adventure for a 60th anniversary. And let's face it, the 50th anniversary pretty much told the ultimate Doctor story, that the Doctor saved Gallifrey and brought it back. There's not much further you can go after that, so I don't mind. And it sucks. So that just doesn't bother me. Anyway, before I go, I'll just talk about what I feel about Russell T Davies in general, or I should say, I am primarily a fan of the Moffat eras, all six incredibly frustrating, incredibly enjoyable seasons. But there's a difference between Davies and Moffat. And the most important difference is Davies is very cognizant of pop culture. He's very cognizant of how, I mean, why else would you hire Ncuti Gatwa if you knew he didn't have, if you didn't know, if you knew, again, hiring Ncuti Gatwa means he's got his finger on the pulse. This guy's hot. Um, I think Russell T Davies understands Doctor Who's pop culture place. Sometimes I think that impedes, like, once in a while, I think that impedes his storytelling instincts, like it did last, partially, like it's partially did last week, because he wanted to poke in the eye, poke turfs and not my doctor people in the eye. And so, but most of the time he understands it. Like the first season of Doctor Who under his belt is a masterclass now to reinvent something for its current age. And I'm hoping that's what he does with Ncuti Gatwa's era. I think, once David Tennant took over, it became more traditional and more continuity focused, because Davies is also a fanboy. They kind of wrestle with each other. As opposed to Stephen Moffat, who is a fanboy and he just like telling whatever weird thing enters his head. Moffat takes big, sometimes dangerous swings, and he doesn't always succeed. I think the best way to characterize but I don't think I could ever. The difference between Davies and Moffat is this: Russell T Davies could never write an episode of Doctor Who that affected me on every level more than Listen could. I was torn to shreds by that episode. But Russell T Davies could never write an episode of Doctor Who as bad, as offensive, as childish, as stupid, as enraging as Let's Kill Hitler. That's the difference between the two of them, which I think is a fun difference. But Russell D Davies will never make me cry like Moffat did, but will never make me punch a hole in the screen like Moffat did either. And finally, one other thing about Russell T Davies is, who else would write an episode like Gridlocked, with great character moments for Martha and the Doctor, with an amazing sci-fi premise right straight out of 2000 AD, with an amazing continuity trick that you don't realize until episodes later, so many amazing things, and on top of all that, we have Ardal O'Hanlon as a sexy cat man. Only Russell T Davies could give us that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review, and I hope you check out the Giggle, and hopefully I'll be able to give my Giggle review sooner rather than later. I'm busy that day, but we'll see, and I will talk to you guys later.